Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report, still under lockdown. It's been 6 years. And so because of how long it's been, we've decided, you know what, we're going to mix it up and give you something to get you excited in your morning. And today, that is Ben Dixon, journalist, progressive activist, and hope of the Benjamin Dixon Show. Ben, welcome back to the Damage Report.
John, it is a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
We're super excited to have you here. It would have been awesome to have your perspective on literally any day in the news, but man, we've got some big stories today. Breaking news with the Supreme Court, a wave of violence against protesters, really scary signs for the pandemic. It's one for the history books that I wish was in the history books so that I wouldn't have to be experiencing it in real time.
I love that. I cannot wait until we can look back on this time. I'm just not really interested in living through this time. I want to see us in about 5 years when it was a thing of the past.
Yeah. I want to be 1 year into President Carlson's administration.
Right. No.
Oh, you said right.
Anybody but Trump, except for Tucker Carlson.
I mean,
you caught me on that one.
That's what all the articles are saying. That's what they're all saying. You think America's too good for that? I don't know.
I think Tucker Carlson would be is the evolution. I think that's the next step. So as much as I hate it, I think we are ignorant enough country to take him on, to take him.
Yeah, I think so. I'm worried about that. Well, everyone who's already here in the chat room on multiple platforms, thank you for being there. Feel free to hit the like button. If you're on a platform that has a like button, that would be nice. You can share the stream, of course. And if you'd like to comment along, send us tweets at hashtag TDR Live, or you can send in super chats. We'll be responding to those throughout. Before we even launched, Tony D had sent in a large super chat just saying free reality winner. Thank you, Tony. Don't hear much about reality winner in the news, not for a while now. And Rob Shively sent us a super chat saying, hell yeah, Ben and John, two of my favorite progressive voices. Also, I love seeing more representation of color out there. Thanks for being amazing. Thank you, Rob. By the way, if you haven't already watched the main show yesterday, we have an announcement. As of right now, if you have a Samsung TV, you can find TYT on Samsung TV Plus channel 1032. The Young Turks is on there, The Damage Report, and your other favorite TYT shows. That's channel 1032 on Samsung TV Plus. I'm sure that the channel numbers are sort of based on when you get on the platform. I have to say that not being in the top 1,000 hurts on a fundamental level, but we are there if you'd like to see us on Samsung. Anyway, with that, Ben, why don't we jump into the news?
Sounds good. Let's do it, man.
Okay. I woke up and I knew it was going to be a big day, although I wasn't sure why, as soon as I saw a tweet from our president just saying prosecutorial misconduct. Now, I am not super tapped into the SCOTUS watch, so I didn't know that there was a big case coming today. That was my first sign. But there was a big one and a big decision with the Supreme Court today clearing the way for prosecutors in New York to see President Trump's financial records, a stunning defeat for Mr. Trump, but a decision that probably means the records will be shielded from public scrutiny under grand jury secrecy rules until after the election and perhaps indefinitely. It was actually two decisions. So in a separate decision, the court ruled that Congress could not, at least for now, see many of the same records. Both votes were 7-2, with Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. writing both majority opinions. And oddly enough, it's the two Trump appointees who were against both of these. But anyway, I have thoughts, obviously. But Ben, I'm curious, what do you make of these two decisions?
It's a continuous theme, right? Some of the only good news that we've gotten in this pandemic has come from the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And that's been a surprise, especially because of the conservative bent of the court. Chief Justice Roberts has regularly shown that I believe he's putting the interest of the court, the validity of the court, first and foremost. I think that's what he's doing. And, I'm not quite sure exactly how long that will play out, right? I think our luck is going to run out. I really am interested, particularly in the case with Donald Trump and his tax records, right? I think that is really the one that's shaking him up the most. And I'm interested in seeing obviously what's in there, but like how far reaching does this go? Like what are the real ramifications of this? And that's why Donald Trump is, of course, doing what he does. He's crying foul as he normally does.
Exactly. And we'll have a little bit more of his reaction in just a minute. But yeah, I'm curious about that too. I mean, the case involving Congress, apparently we're not getting that resolved anytime soon. The one with the New York investigation, even that, hypothetically, we might not have for some time. And so I guess what I'm curious about is, I got one or two tweets with people saying, you know, I can't wait to see your reaction. And I worry that I might disappoint people, because I think some fans will think I'm going to be excited because we're finally close to getting his records. But I don't know. I feel a little bit weird about it. Like, as far as we've now come through this whole thing and now into this pandemic and all of that, I don't know. I wonder how much I care anymore. And more importantly, I wonder how much anyone will care. Like, at this point, what are we going to find that's going to, like, get through to his base? Like, peel away 10% of voters? I don't know what that would have to be. They're okay with tens of thousands of people dying. What financial stuff is going to sway them at this point?
No, I think that's actually spot on, right? There's nothing when Donald Trump said that he can go on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, we did not realize how prophetic that would be. Like, he really, I mean, this base, he doesn't go below like 36-35% in terms of his approval rating, and that's his core base that will follow him to hell and back again. So there's nothing that's going to come out of his tax returns that's going to change their mind. And I think you make a great point. Like, we're at the end of this, and the damage has been done, right? Of course, there's a long way between now and January. So if there's anything in this that like is an open and shut case for a second impeachment, then fine. But I don't know how that really changes the conditions that we're under now. Like, there are a lot of emergencies that are happening right now that I think you make a great point that this really won't have any bearing on. Yeah,
100%. And I see people in the chat are saying like campaign finance fraud and stuff like that. And I totally get it, but we already know about that. Like, I have no doubt that we would find out about criminality. I have no doubt at all. I just wonder if it would matter. And to go even one step more meta than that, do we want it to be the story? Like, considering all that's going on and how bad it obviously is for Donald Trump politically with the pandemic and his decision to turn the entire election into sort of a referendum on race relations in America by viciously demonizing anyone who doesn't wear a red hat and have pasty skin, is it better for Trump to have this be about his taxes and his financial stuff? Because he certainly hasn't liked any of the news this past year. That seems more like comfortable ground for him. I don't know. Am I wrong?
So I don't think you're wrong. I think it's more of a testament to like how screwed America is, right? Do you remember at the beginning of his term where journalists kept saying, we can't let this be the new normal. This isn't normal. This is not the new normal. Well, yeah, it already was the new normal, right? We're at the point where we're so desensitized because of Donald Trump specifically. Like, America was already on a bad trajectory. And I don't want to make it seem like we're going to lay everything at the feet of Trump, but a lot deserves to be laid at the feet of Trump. And part of what needs to be laid at the feet of Trump is just the ridiculous amount of controversy after controversy after controversy. And because of how he manages controversy, which is to like say, meh, whatever, right? We didn't realize that meh, whatever was so freaking powerful, right? And then he has a base that's like, he doesn't care, we don't care. And that has put us in a place where literally nothing matters. Nothing matters with Donald Trump. He's going to keep getting that 35%. He's going to keep getting that 36% approval rating, and he's going to keep dominating the Republican Party. So I don't know. Like, I still kind of agree with you. Whether or not it's something that he's more comfortable with, I don't know. I just know that he's comfortable with not caring about anything, and that's his invincibility power right there.
Yeah. By the way, I also want to say I was corrected in the comments, and the correction was totally right. It was Thomas and Alito that voted against these, not I implied that it was Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. So commenters, +1 for you, -1 for me. Thank you for keeping me honest. I was just recollecting incorrectly. But I want to turn to Trump now. I'm of the opinion that Trump doesn't actually politically mind his tax information being investigated, especially since we probably won't get it until after the election anyway. We probably won't get it for another 5 or 10 years. It'll be an interesting footnote when we do. But in real time, he is angry about all this. He tweeted, the Supreme Court sends cases back to lower court, arguments to continue. This is all a political prosecution, which he is always against, going after political opponents. He'd never do that. I won the Mueller witch hunt and others, and now I have to keep fighting in a politically corrupt New York. Not fair to this presidency or administration. He goes on to say, courts in the past have given broad deference, but not me. So, I don't know. I guess as little as I kind of care about this and as little as I think it will end up mattering for the presidential election, if it is causing him a little bit of pain in the short term, I can take some schadenfreude out of that, considering the state of the country, I guess.
I don't know. I hate this man. Right? I just there's and the reason I say it like that is because what else is there to say about this clown? What else is there to say about a man who is presiding over the deaths of 132,000 Americans and creating the conditions for even more to die, and yet he feels like he's the victim, right? I think I spend so much time on my show trying to analyze things and trying to break it down to like what are the real motivations and behind their political machinations and stuff. But at the end of the day, man, F these people, bro. Like as soon as whenever he eventually and inevitably dies, I can't wait to take my turn to piss on his grave because they are literally the bane of our existence, and they're going to get a lot of people killed. And I think it's just time up for even giving it. I have no civility left to give these clowns. I have nothing. Yeah, no,
I think at this point, considering all the damage that has been done since 2016, and I know it's hard to think back to the dark times before 2016, but things sucked then.
Exactly.
Like with all of that, we're supposed to care about like being like polite to Trump? No.
Man, no. They just better be grateful that most of us still care about the laws, right? We still are trying to preserve institutions. We're still trying to keep some sense of civilization, and we're trying to work through the system to resolve these issues. But if you ask me what kind of respect I have for the president or the office of the presidency and Donald Trump, man, well, anyway, I don't know what the rating of the show is. I'll just leave it at
that. We normally abide by TV language requirements, but we can edit in post if necessary, Ben.
Okay, it's not that important. If necessary. I'll preserve all the profanity for my show.
Okay. Everyone go watch his show to hear him go off verbally.
You saw how I slipped that plug in.
Exactly. By the way, I wanted to also mention that if this is something that really gets you fired up, and I understand why. If you care about law and order and you believe that Trump has committed financial crimes, whether domestically, corruption, stuff like that, or internationally, all of that, I get it. Trump isn't the only person that hypothetically you could be mad at. You could be also mad at some of the Dems who, in 2018, ran on, we're going to get the taxes. And then as soon as they were in office, we're like, maybe we'll get around to it at some point. And if they had been faster in that process, today's decision would have been the decision of 3 to 6 months ago, and maybe we would get the taxes before the election. Now, don't listen to me. Listen to Alex Morris, great candidate whose primary election is coming up soon, said a real Democrat would have subpoenaed Trump's taxes on day one instead of delaying because he was more focused on cozying up to his Republican colleagues for votes on a bill to help his corporate donors. That is Richard Neal, who Alex Morris is running against in Massachusetts' 1st District. And yeah, Richard Neal had been sort of implying like, you know what, we're going to go in there, we're going to get him, we're going to hold him accountable. And then he took a big, long nap as soon as they were in office. So I'm glad that Alex Morris is reminding people of that at this point.
Yeah, I like the way you frame that, right? As important as it is for us to get Donald Trump out of power, and quite frankly, any Republican across the let me frame it like this. The Democratic Party should be what the Republican Party is, right? The Democratic Party should be the furthest right that we are in this country. But we got to get the sociopaths out of power. As important as that is, there is so much culpability that the responsibility has to be laid at the feet of the Democratic Party, because one of the most frustrating things right now, John, is the fact that we don't have an effective opposition party to actually fight on our behalf against these sociopaths who are in power right now. And I'm sorry, when you have the House of Representatives, you're the Speaker of the House, if you're the Senate Minority Leader, you have a significant amount of political power. And I feel that not only those two particular leaders, but also the rank and file, there's just a dearth, there's an absence of leadership fighting on our behalf in some of our darkest hours. So there's plenty to be laid at the Democratic Party.
Exactly. It was a moment where we needed leadership, and thankfully we did have it, but not from the actual leaders. It was, the squad and, people affiliated with the squad that stepped up over the past few years. I also wanted to mention the Supreme Court today ruled by a 5-4 margin that nearly half of Oklahoma is an Indian reservation in the eyes of the criminal justice system, preventing state authorities from prosecuting offenses there that involve Native Americans. That is a huge decision. It's not one that I'm expert on, so we are reaching out to experts to come on and help us dissect this, but I did want to let you know that that is also super significant. We should acknowledge it, especially considering that much of the coverage, as you just saw, is going to be focused on these two cases. This is also significant as well.
Yeah.
Okay, before we move on to other news, I wanted to react to a little bit of what you have all been sending in. Let's see. Shaz K says, I love Ben. Thank you, John. You're awesome too. Thank you. Kai Allen says, hey, Ben, the intelligence and empathy of you guys as you fight for us makes me feel optimistic about our future. Maybe Iadarola Dixon 2024. Why not Dixon Iadarola 2024?
Either way is fine with me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Also, I wouldn't do that to you. I used to host a late night show called Common Room. That would sink any candidacy, the stuff that we said on there.
So I wasn't going to bring it up, but I like to party entirely too much. So yeah. I am not the guy to run on any ticket.
There you go. Let's stay in media. Miss Given says, Mr. Dixon, what a privilege. Thank you for being with us all today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. The Sing in the Left says, John and Ben, do you think Tucker boosted Tammy to VP? Talking about the attacks against her bravery and things like that.
I don't know. What do you I had not considered that. Have any thoughts about that?
I mean, it's the sort of thing Biden would do, it seems like want to take on this person who's weathered this storm from the right. I don't know how high up on the list she was to start off with. She wouldn't have been my first pick, obviously. I mean, so obviously, ideologically, she wouldn't be my first pick. But in terms of like even trying to get into Biden's mind, I don't think she would have been my first pick.
Yeah, I think she would be interesting in that she's not a part of any of the people being considered right now. There's baggage with everyone who's being considered right now. And sometimes like pulling somebody out of the left field, not ideologically speaking,
yes.
but would be a good way for him to cover his behind.
Yeah.
I'm working hard, John. I'm working hard.
His behind. No, you can say ass. You can say that.
Oh, okay.
You throw out a butt
I don't know
if you
the
want.
rules. Okay. There you go.
It's weird what's allowed and what's not. Dale Mitchell says, Ben's comments on Trump was enough to have me super chat. Thank you, Ben. I'm so following him now. Thanks from a DFW black man, Yabambe.
Hey, appreciate it. Appreciate the love.
And let's see. Miranda says, we're in real trouble when someone as nice as you has been clinging to Schadenfreude for weeks now. Yeah. They're turning us into villains.
Bro, let me tell you, I tweeted this morning, it's the truth of my life. Like, I would rather be outside barbecuing with my kids, but I'm really contemplating setting up a guillotine shop in my garage. So they're pushing us to the edge.
Yeah, hold on a second. These are all board games behind me. I don't want to do any of this political stuff. I want to play these board games. That's it. That's all I want to do, and hang out with my dogs. And also my wife, in case she's watching. That's what I want. They're the ones making us crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, they're really pushing the limits here.
Anyway. Okay, with that, why don't we turn to other news? Although I should say, look, there's over 6,000 of you watching and only 1,500 likes. WTF, people. Click the button. You might like it. Okay. With that, let's talk news. Situation with the pandemic in the U.S. is getting hotter in a bad way recently. We once again broke records with a record number of cases in the U.S., also in the world. So once again, we are number one. But unfortunately, here is the thing about that right part of that chart that you're seeing. is that the situation facing our frontline workers is unfortunately looking like the first big rise up on the left part of that chart, even though it was months ago. For weeks now, nurses have been posting online testimonials about a lack of PPE, with some given surgical masks instead of N95 masks because of shortages. In a video posted last week, a Florida nurse said she breaks the oath she took to, quote, do no harm every time she goes to work without protection, and worries constantly she may be infecting her patients, coworkers, and family. This is not a limited thing. This is not just anecdotal. Demand for protective equipment has soared, but unlike back in March when efforts focused on getting PPE for major hospitals, especially in areas like New York, Detroit, and Chicago, supplies now are desperately needed everywhere. Primary care offices, nursing homes, prisons, psychiatric and disability facilities. As many states have continued to reopen their economies, demand has also surged from the construction industry and other sectors. With soaring demand, prices have skyrocketed. And so I recently had a doctor on and I asked him, what have we learned from the first time and how are we better prepared? And we are in some ways, but this is the same problem. You would think with months of time to prepare, we would take it seriously. We'd be prepared. But Trump checked out months ago. The funding has largely checked out months ago. And now, once again, these frontline workers, our heroes, remember, we were all calling them heroes, are now having to be heroic in the same way once again and risk their lives.
Yeah. You know, the thing about this moment that is most frustrating is the intentional actions and decisions that are being made by not just Donald Trump, but Republican governors across the country, and how irresponsible it is in that they are not only creating the conditions for us to forcing us to go back out, right? They want us to go out and consume, but then they're undermining anything that would help ameliorate the effects of this, right? We could have opened up the economy slowly but surely and carefully, but that wasn't good enough for them. What they've done is like saying, we want to open up the economy and create the very worst conditions imaginable. And that's where we see the increase, right? I think, what was it, 60,000 new cases yesterday alone. And I'm just amazed at how sadistic this really is. Like, I can't imagine what's going through their minds, but I don't even care about trying to figure them out because it's all on purpose at this point. Whether it's ignorance, incompetence, or malevolence, the result is the same.
Yeah, or some weird stew of all three. We talked about yesterday on the show, Tucker Carlson, he's like, schools have to open. Also, they shouldn't be wearing masks. There's no science behind wearing masks. It's like...
give us something, right? Like stop. I mean, you're literally creating the exact conditions necessary to maximize the deaths. John, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but this is what I did my show on today, and it is really at the level of fury. They are literally creating the conditions that are going to get people killed when, if they did the right thing, we could get even better results, right? If they took the steps that are necessary, people could not only survive, but if we had virtual learning, kids would learn better. I mean, there's so many things that we could be doing and innovating around in this moment, but instead of doing the better thing, they're doing the exact thing that's going to cause people to get killed. And I don't know, man, something has to be done about this.
I agree. And also, don't apologize. I brought you on to cut me off. If you wanted to get kids and their families killed from coronavirus, what would you have done differently in that Tucker Carlson monologue? Nothing. You do that if your goal was murder. It's insane. You're not supposed to say it. You're supposed to be polite while they're trying to get people killed.
Right. What else are we supposed to say? That's literally what they're doing. And then if you add on top of it, right, the reason I'm so pissed off about it is because on top of this is the fact that none of their kids go to public schools.
Yes.
All of their kids are probably going to be homeschooled with a very well-paid, highly paid tutor to sit there and give them a first-class education while they are insisting on sending our children back out to public schools in situations where even on the best of days, schools are petri dishes. Like we haven't gotten sick since we started quarantining because my kids aren't bringing anything home from school. Every sickness we get in this household comes from school, and that's on the best of days. And these people who have no skin in the game, literally, Betsy DeVos probably doesn't have anybody in her generation that goes to public school, but she's demanding that we go back to public school.
Exactly. And the people who have the most skin in the game, we're leaving them out. Teachers, I already saw local news stories starting to filter up of teachers dying over summer school from coronavirus. There was a Texas case of that. In terms of these nurses, The nurses, doctors, other people in healthcare, 94,000 infections, more than 500 dead, officially. The actual number is likely much higher. And now we're telling them, no, you need to do without masks once again. And in interviews, White House officials say concerns about PPE shortages are overblown. They said U.S. manufacturing and stockpiles of protective equipment have improved dramatically and are adequate in most states. Oh, good. Well, then I'm glad for doctors and nurses in most states. But in a survey of 23,000 registered nurses, National Nurses United found 85% were asked to reuse masks designed for single use, and a survey of over 14,000 by the American Nurses Association found nearly 80% being asked to reuse masks and 45% reporting shortages. Still, after months, in the most powerful, richest country in the history of countries, they're still having to reuse masks and they're still running out of PPE. It is an embarrassment.
There's no excuse for it. There's literally no excuse for it. And while I hope that there is some journalist who's willing and has the stomach to actually investigate so that we can finally have a line between the stupidity that we're seeing, the how we have abandoned our healthcare workers, and we have no PPE. If they could draw the line to the cause and effect, we would appreciate that as a society. But for now, okay. Anyway, I'll stop there. But for now, they can all go to hell. Let's just stop there.
Yeah.
They can go to hell because what they're doing is killing people. And John, I will say this though. I wonder how much they expect us to tolerate. I wonder if they really feel like they can just get away with this without any repercussions whatsoever. Because I mean, at this point, their decisions are directly harming us. And it's almost like a physical threat to our well-being.
Yeah.
And the question in my mind is like, how much do they think the people could take?
Yeah. Apparently at least a little bit more than we're taking right now. And I think a lot of people are probably right on the edge, if not past it at this point. Yeah, let's transition to a slightly different angle on this. We're all shocked day by day as the number of cases continues to go up, sort of as people like Dr. Fauci have been predicting they will. It's past 60,000 in one day. And we've had one basic mission here at the Damage Report for at least the last few weeks, if not the entirety of the pandemic, is try to pat anyone on the right on the head who does the right thing on the coronavirus, acknowledges what's going on, encourages people to wear masks, even people I disagree with on literally everything, like Ducey and Janine Pirro and all of that. If they're saying wear masks, I'm going to give them credit. And to the credit of Fox News, they actually listed the number of cases and deaths. Okay, I thought I had that up. The number of cases and deaths. They almost never do this, but they did it recently for that new record. Over 62,000 cases in one day, over 132,000 deaths. And that's important because people are watching, and especially people who watch Fox News, this sort of information has generally been obscured for them. And so because people are watching, this is important. But also, one person in particular is always watching. And so right after that graphic aired, Donald Trump tweeted, for the 1/100th time, which is that's not how it works. I'm not a mathematician or anything. That's not how that works. The reason we show so many cases compared to other countries that haven't done nearly as well as we have, more people have died here than literally anywhere, just bear that in mind, is that our testing is much bigger and better. We have tested 40 million people. If we did 20 million instead, cases would be half, etc. Not reported. No, but he means we're not reporting that fact. That's not true. No, if we had done less tests, they wouldn't be reported, but the cases would still be there, you colossal moron. Anyway, I know that it's probably pointless to even say this. Expecting that he's going to learn, that he's going to catch up is probably a waste of time. But with even Sean Hannity is saying wear masks and take this seriously, and still it hasn't gotten through to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, there was a study that came out that showed that there was a correlation between either cases or deaths and viewers of Fox News, specifically viewers of Sean Hannity. So if nothing else at this point, they're like, okay, we're going to be liable for this. So at least let's give some accurate reporting on this. which is one thing. But of course, now I like you pointed out that this is where Donald Trump is parting ways with his favorite news network. I have no idea what he meant by 1/100th. I was a math major in college for the first 2 years. Then I changed to politics. But I'm pretty sure that absolutely means nothing. But what we see on a regular basis with Donald Trump, he continuously pushes this theme, and I wonder if I know that he knows that is something that he can use to maintain his 35%. So long as he throws him a breadcrumb, as long as he throws them anything, it doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. So long as they have a talking point on social media, they'll still back him up. Yeah. And so I think he's feeding his trolls. He's feeding his base.
You're probably right. And by the way, you spent 2 years in math before going to politics. I spent 2 years in engineering before going to politics. # hard sciences exit.
Exactly.
Turned out it was difficult.
Yeah. Turns out that I wasn't really good past differential equations. After that, it was like, yeah, it's time for me to get out of here.
You're going to give me nightmares just saying that. But yeah, you're probably right. And I'm glad that you brought up that thing about Fox News initially, that people who watched Sean Hannity rather than Tucker Carlson, there were more deaths in that area. But it's been interesting that initially that story got Tucker Carlson some credit, like for taking it seriously. I mean, sure, the way he was taking it seriously was just demonizing China. People sort of forget that part. But what's interesting is that Sean Hannity is now taking it way more seriously. Tucker Carlson is still saying masks are unscientific. He had previously, early in the pandemic, said, of course masks work. Right. And now he's moved away from that position, begging the question, why? What has changed that he's moved so far in the direction of encouraging people to be irresponsible when even dullards like Sean Hannity are now accepting that we need to take this seriously?
The dullards like Sean Hannity. I love that line. I'm curious. I have no idea the true motivation of Tucker Carlson outside of his own personal, I think, glorification. I think he's just looking out. I think he sees an opportunity. Right, where Fox News, I think he's contrarian. He's a contrarian, and by being a contrarian, he's going against like Fox News in this case. But that opens up a lane for him at Fox News for all of the people who don't want to hear the truth from Fox News to rally around him. So I think it might just be a career posturing thing.
Yeah, maybe it might be. Okay, we're going to switch things up entirely in just a minute, but I want to quickly check in on Twitter at #TDR Live with Gabby saying, is cursing in Spanish allowed on the damage report? I don't know, actually. That's an interesting question. I feel like they would have figured that out on the networks.
Yeah.
Let's see. Over on Twitch at twitch.tv/TYT, AOC 2020X says, my aunt works in a hospital here in Melbourne, Florida. She said beds are basically full and they're very short on PPE. It's got to be scary. Imagine working in healthcare in Florida right now. That is terrifying. Yeah.
What did they have? 10,000 cases alone yesterday?
Yeah, more than most countries have. Just in Florida. Weird that DeSantis being your governor means you're less well equipped to deal with an emergency. That's weird. David Covert says, if kids can go back to school, are Manafort and Cohen ever going back to prison? I get what you're saying. I understand that as a rhetorical point, but I don't want to open up the floodgates of encouraging people to be sent back to prison because prisons are still awash in COVID, and I don't want other prisoners to be put into a position where they're not kept safe. But I get the point you're trying to make. Let's see. Okay. Raleigh Jones says, didn't you always think before this a rogue and crazy president like this would be dealt with, not advocating violence, but just based on history and the nefarious ways of our government, and maybe just too much Oliver Stone?
I want to comment on that. I think no matter how ridiculous Donald Trump is, he's still a servant of the ruling elite. He's still making sure their quarterly profit margins. In fact, I think most of the demands that we are under right now to go back to work and to go back to school in one form or fashion is a way of ensuring that the ruling elite gets their quarterly profit margins. So Donald Trump is not a threat by any means to the most powerful people in the world who you would normally think would be the people to put something like that together.
Exactly. I think you nailed it. Exactly. Which is sort of like the deep state that he always rails against.
Exactly.
Would be fine with him.
The deep state loves him.
Yeah. Tony D says, Stone, Flynn, Cohen free from prison due to COVID, but reality winner is ignored. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Searching for answers says AOC 2024. We'll see. We'll see.
Will she be old enough by then? I don't know how old she is right now.
I don't know. I say just run anyway. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we don't
everything. We've ignored everything else in the Constitution.
Exactly.
So why the hell not?
Like she should be a couple months short. Who cares? She's more mature than everyone we've got in office. 80-year-olds. Anyway, Bobby Tony says, John, say a Bombay again like you mean it. You've seen Black Panther. Say it with your chest. Okay, well, I don't know what you want out of me. Thank you for the super chat, though. Jesus.
I'm tempted to say it myself because that gets me hype every time, but I'm not going to do it. But just shout out. I'll go play the movie after this. Thanks for the recommendation.
Look, it got me fired up too.
Just thinking about it, like hell yeah.
I agree. I need to go back and watch a lot of those. Anyway, and Kevin Hudson says, love Ben Dixon. His Twitter is hot fire. # eat the rich.
Eat the rich, baby. Eat the rich.
There you go. There's a lot of them to go around, and a lot of people are hungry. Okay, with that, let's turn to something ominous. Here we go.
John, is it your birthday? I just saw in the chat room.
No, it's just a chat thing.
Oh,
every day is my birthday.
Because I think I missed.
Thank you, though.
I missed it. Okay.
It was Anna Kasparian's birthday a couple days ago, but not me.
Oh, close. It's in the family. Okay, happy belated.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to read the chats anymore. Let me ignore the chat.
No, you can trust most of it. Just nothing birthday related. Can you really trust?
Okay. It's a thing. Okay, I got you.
Okay. Donald Trump has a new campaign ad targeting those still protesting against police brutality and for reform of American law enforcement. There's something kind of dangerous about it, something a little bit irresponsible about it. See if you can catch it.
You have reached the 911 police emergency line. Due to defunding of the police department, we're sorry, but no one is here to take your call. If you're calling to report a rape, please press 1. To report a murder, press 2. To report a home invasion, press 3. For all other crimes, leave your name and number, and someone will get back to you. Our estimated wait time is currently 5 days. Goodbye.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That is one of the most reprehensible ads I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I think so. I have a bad habit of logically breaking these things down. Like, let's be realistic. The police always get there too late. First and foremost, they're never there in time to stop a crime. It's the rarest of occasion that they happen to be in the same place at the same time that a crime is happening and they can help prevent it. So first and foremost, that's it. When we say defund the police, it does not necessarily include the detectives, the people who actually investigate crimes, right? Yeah. I think people feel this sensation that without police cars driving and patrolling your neighborhood, that then your neighborhood is going to fall into chaos. I don't know where you live, but basically nowhere in the United States do you have to have police patrolling your neighborhoods for your neighborhood to be safe. In fact, there's a direct correlation, an inverse relationship between the more police that you have in your neighborhood, the less likely that your neighborhood would be safe for all kinds of factors, including poverty. But that's the logical argument against it. In terms of the ad itself, it is right up there with the I'm trying to think of the ad that they ran against Michael Dukakis. I think it's a level of fear mongering that we haven't seen in a while. And I think it's going to play well with this base because that's what they want.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Totally. It calls up the Dukakis thing. It's like, the Tucker Carlson segments where he says they're going to be coming for you. The hordes are going to be coming for you. Yeah. Armed Black Lives Matter militias. I mean, we get the message that they're trying to send. I guess it's a small point to bring up, but it seems even more ridiculous that they're running that ad against Joe Biden when no matter what you mean when you say defund the police, Biden doesn't even agree with that. So
yes, like I completely forgot about that. Joe Biden is talking about putting more money into the police. And just like, here's the thing though, Democrats need to realize something. And maybe they know it and they're just like going through kabuki theater, right? They're just playing along, playing their part. But there's nothing that they can do. There's no level of cooperation, triangulation, or moderation that the Republicans won't vilify as something as terrifying and malicious.
Yeah.
Joe Biden literally wants to put more money in the police, yet they're labeling him as the, abolish the police movement, which he's the furthest from. He's closer to the police union than he would ever be abolishing the police.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, it's like you idiot Republicans, you can already run against Biden on things like his support for the crime bill in the 90s and things like that. Now you're saying he wants to totally remove all policing, which is, I mean, I guess maybe some conservatives have the mental flexibility to be like, Biden doesn't want there to be any police, and Biden wants there to be police on literally every corner, totally interfering with people's lives. At the same time, ad by ad, I don't know. But it's a weird way to attack Biden. It's obviously entirely disingenuous towards what the movement is actually pushing for.
Yeah.
And you rightfully pointed out, like, yeah, a lot of the times they don't show up in time. And a lot of the times when they do show up in time, they make the situation far worse, which is the whole point.
Right.
So
absolutely.
frustrating.
What did you call it? The mental flexibility? Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
I have to incorporate that into my vernacular. But the contortions that they go through, the cognitive dissonance is something that, honestly, if they used it for good, it would be one of the most magnificent thinking capacities ever. But they use it to be intentionally obtuse. Like, they use this level of cognitive dissonance to be as dense as they possibly can. And that denseness is ruining America on a level that, whatever. We'll see what happens in this election that's coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you to all the people in the comments who are like, this is Willie Horton 2.0. Totally.
That's
what
Willie
we're referring to.
It couldn't get to me. Yeah.
100%. Let's talk a little bit more about this. Early on, when the platform, but also the slogan "Defund the Police" came out, there were a lot of people criticizing it, saying, maybe I agree with the goals, but you're going to turn people off with this messaging. I always thought that was overblown, but that was a common refrain. Turns out, not so much. Didn't need to worry about that necessarily. According to new polling, most Americans believe, this is 77%, believe that those who use that phrase really just want to change the way police departments operate. Only 18% believe that people who use this phrase actually want to get rid of police departments. And I would guess, I don't know for sure, I would guess those 18% probably aren't predisposed to be intellectually honest towards Black Lives Matter in general. So, I mean, that is an overwhelming win in terms of messaging, that people get what they're saying.
Yeah, I think we downplayed the intelligence of good faith actors, right? People who are operating in good faith are intelligent enough to sit down and say, okay, now, I want to say something first. I do mean defund the police, right? I literally mean strip as much funding as you possibly can and keep it small enough to just solve crimes. Just small. The beat cops are not protecting us, right? So defund it. And my position is, quite frankly, the moderate position amongst people, because my friends to the left of me, who I love and I cherish, they want to abolish the police. Now, that being said, we know that the majority of America is not over here with us. And I know that my job is really to just push the envelope and to push the Overton window as far as I possibly can. In terms of the voters and the people who took that polling, they're intelligent enough to know what the majority of people feel. It is about fundamentally changing policing in this country at a level that we've never considered before people start screaming, defund the police.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I use the term, I mean massively defund the police, not entirely remove it so that there's no law enforcement. We're in Mad Max, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having it do what it needs to do and not all of the things it doesn't need to do. And it doesn't need to be armed for, street combat in Fallujah and all of that. Exactly. And the thing is, look, I understand. I didn't weigh in a ton on the debate about the term early on, because some people who I really respect, like Cenk Uygur, he was against the term partially because he desperately wants the goals to be achieved, and he worried that it would be an impediment to that. Now, thankfully, it turns out it is not an impediment to that. But anyway, this is good news. I wanted to read just a couple of other stats about these protests and what's been going on. Some of it not particularly surprising. But 3 in 10 Americans feel that the actions taken during the recent protests against police and the deaths of black citizens were fully justified. There's others who believe it's partially justified. That's up from those who, only 17% who said that in early June. So it is trending in the direction of people feeling like even with all of the negative press coverage of these protests, that what they're doing is fully justified. There's also information like this. Among self-identified Republicans and independents who lean towards the Republican Party, 40% say that racial discrimination is a big problem. This represents a 14-point drop from a few weeks ago. 35% say it's not a problem, which is higher than all prior Monmouth polls on this question. So since the beginning of the protests, you've lost 30% of Republicans maybe say, I used to think it was a problem, but now I don't. That's madness.
Yeah, those are bad faith actors, and I'm at the stage. I'm at the stage where I really have to look through the lens of: did you ever want to negotiate in good faith? Like, did you ever mean? We spend so much time trying to explain things and debate things, and some people sit down to the table and they never intended to be truthful.
Yeah.
They never intended to change their mind with new information. They only intended to get their own political ends met. And I think what we're seeing here are a bunch of people who see, right, they saw the injustice, but because they never intended on dealing in good faith with us in the first place, they would rather change their mind about the structure of racism in this country than to actually give any credence to what we've been saying all this time, right? So they had, I think the poll I don't believe were the previous polls. I believe these polls.
Yeah.
These polls, because this is what they really believed all along.
You know, I hadn't been thinking about that. I think you're totally right. Yeah. Let's talk about bad faith actors, though. So these polls that show that Republicans are less willing to acknowledge racial discrimination just during the protests, what's been going on during that time? What hypothetically could have triggered them to perhaps, as our guest Ben Dixon has been saying, more accurately reflect what they really thought? Well, one of the things is right-wing media has been doing everything they can to get people to not pay attention to the legitimate demands of the protesters. Here's a great example of it.
It's just amazing that all the rich ladies in Aspen and Greenwich think BLM is about ending racism, which obviously all of us are for, when in fact it's a revolutionary group. Maybe the U.S. government could take decisive action, and by doing that, make it really clear that this is a terror organization.
So just to be clear, that was Tucker Carlson once again declaring Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. Just casually, as a throwaway line. That wasn't even scripted. He's just chatting with his guest, and he says, oh yeah, no, that organization that like 77% of the American public supports, that's a terrorist organization, like Al-Qaeda, like ISIS.
Yeah, and obviously, like the clear-cut thing to be juxtaposed with that is the fact that they don't see the alt-right, right, as a terrorist organization.
Yep.
They barely see the actual Klan as a terrorist organization. The Boogaloo Boys, they don't see those as terrorist organizations. Yep. When we know, like, and this is, I hate to be repeat the same thing over and over again, but you're not a good faith actor, right? And when I say that, that means like there's no reason to talk with you anymore.
Yes.
There's no reason to debate with you anymore. There's absolutely no reason for me to be civil with you because you never meant to do right by us in the first place. So when you look at the Boogaloo Boys and you say nothing about them, or the Proud Boys, you say nothing about them, but you label a group that hasn't killed anybody, right? That has not killed anybody. You label them as a terrorist organization. That means you have an agenda, and that agenda is meant to hurt me. So there's nothing else for us to talk about. How tall is Tucker Carlson? That's what I need to know. I need to find out how tall he is, and that's just, we should just know that. I think that's important.
Zach, I don't know, but perhaps someone in the chat can tell us. Totally agree. I didn't want to, but I went on a rant about Tucker Carlson on the show yesterday. His middle name should be Badfaith, because that is the only way he operates. By the way, that comment that we showed you with him saying that BLM is just a terror organization, I'm just going to throw that out as a comment. That's part of a new pattern for him. He recently said that the protesters and Antifa should be marched in front of cameras like MS-13. And he specifically said, and you can go back and watch this, he said, it's because of the perception. As long as we call them protesters, people will think they're legitimate. We have to label them terrorists so that people won't listen to them. He said that in his thing. And I want you to think about that. Saying, these people I disagree with, we need to call them terrorists so that no one will pay attention to them. And they'll be rounded up, they'll be locked up. This is a guy who complains about cancel culture constantly and believes that the free speech rights need to be respected. Now, anyone he disagrees with, he literally wants the federal government to designate them as terrorists so that no one will listen to their political message anymore.
Yeah. They try to do that. Remember, Trump just did that with Antifa, right? And then I remember that Trump did that 3 years ago with Antifa,
Yeah.
right? And so they have no problem leveraging the full weight of the government to suppress political speech by giving us these labels that they get to determine, right? We can't even decide if someone using the N-word is racist, right?
Yeah.
But they get to decide that people who they just don't like their political speech, that they're terrorist organizations. I found out that Tucker is about 6'1", so I'm going to have to lift my heavy bag a little bit higher at home, my uppercut bag, and practice this height 6'1", just as an expression of exercise and releasing all the anger that I might have towards him.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of people have been saying he's 6'1", but others are saying you should acknowledge he has a dad bod. I mean,
I have a dad bod times two, so we're gonna solidarity with dad bods.
That's true.
But Tucker could go to hell.
That's true. Yeah. Let's not vilify the dad bod. I'm working out so that someday I can have a dad bod. I'm working towards it. But anyway, okay, let's read a couple of comments before we press on. Let's see. Wow, the Twitch is pretty active. Let's see. Tom Will said on Twitch, there have been 35,000 delayed cancer treatments here in the UK because of COVID. I shudder to think how many in the US, but we might never know. The US doesn't release data. It's bad for business, and healthcare is a business. Yeah.
That's a terrifying notion.
These ripple effects that aren't going to be reflected in the data. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Brandon Dawson says, keep it up. Thank you. Let's see. Wes Crosby says, hey, John and Ben, keep up the amazing work, and everyone make sure you check out Ben's Patreon-only shows. Fire.
Love.
Nice. Okay, the Bond says, because you're the first person I've heard to mention the 500-plus dead American healthcare workers, I'm a disabled RN in OC, California, and I've been calling my rep and senators to DPA the PPE and to demand House be able to inventory national stockpile. Bonds, I hope that, you and all the people you've worked with get the equipment they need.
Absolutely.
Julia says, please stop doing a Trump voice. It makes him into a character. Plus, reading quotes in normal human voice emphasizes how ridiculous his words are. Julia, you are not wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a critique of your Trump impersonation, and I thought it was a pretty good impersonation. But she makes a good point.
I also want to briefly mention this. So I despise Ben Shapiro. Any rational person would. And so occasionally, Ben, you probably don't know this, but when I do Ben, I have a impersonation of him that I do. And I did it because I hate him and because I'm not a perfect person. I get petty sometimes. And I got a message from someone saying that the impersonation I did of him appeared to be mocking some of the physical characteristics of autism. And this person was a fan of the show and said, but it feels like you're saying that because he's suspicious for these reasons, that anyone else who acts the same way, perhaps that might be autistic, is suspicious for the same reason. And I thought, that is 100% right. And I had never thought about it, but I have not done the impersonation since, and I won't. We can't allow our, despising these people to get us to lump in other people. And I felt so bad when I read that this person who watched the show felt like I was mocking them. But anyway.
You're a good man, John. I mean, not that I wouldn't have done the same thing. I do change course for people in my audience when they make a good argument. I have no problem doing that. But it is a difficult thing to do, to process all these comments that come at us on a regular basis, and for you to still have the temerity and the willingness to adjust to a comment from a supporter of the show like that after all these years. That's really a good thing, man.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I mean, it's literally the least that I can do.
Right.
And yeah, you want to, we get so mad. We talk about it occasionally. I don't know how much you talk about it on your show, but we get this affects us because we're not just actors. We're not just grifters. We actually care about the outcome.
We mean what we say, right?
Yeah.
We have a case of true believerism. And when you really believe this stuff, it takes you to a level of anger that you have to process. We probably everybody who's doing commentary that actually means it, right? That's not just entertaining. Then we probably do need some mental health counseling along the way, because to comment on this stuff all of the time and then realize that the solution to a lot of these problems really is we have a valid case for uprising in this country, but to be the voices that have to be the voices of reason, So we have to suppress that. I think we all need some mental health counseling, to be honest with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We get affected by it, but we still have to live our values.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Now, speaking of things that might affect us,
Here we
in
go.
a negative way, let's go to this. Not long ago on the show, we talked about a person who drove their car through a barricade, seemingly specifically to target protesters, and killed 24-year-old Summer Taylor. An absolute tragedy, but not a tragedy that apparently is all that rare in America anymore, because these sorts of attacks are happening all the time. And I want to give a ton of credit to a friend of the show, Jesslyn Cook of HuffPost, who's put together a great write-up of how these purposeful vehicular targeting of protesters, vehicular terrorism, let's just call it what it is, has become more and more common. So after the killing of Summer Taylor, hours later in Indiana, a man in an SUV swerved around police barriers and into a crowd of protesters on a bridge, hitting and dragging 23-year-old Trevor Davis, who was hospitalized. 2 days after that, on Monday night, a driver plowed into protesters in front of a courthouse in Indiana before speeding away with two people desperately clinging to the roof of the car, causing them to fly off. Days later, a man reportedly made a U-turn to get behind a group of protesters near Richmond, Virginia, revved the engine of his truck, and then slammed it into them. Police later reported that he is a self-described state leader of the Virginia Ku Klux Klan. These are all tragedies, and there are many more. All told, there have been at least 66 car attacks nationwide just since George Floyd was killed by Minneapolis police on May 25th. We've covered several of them. I had no idea that it had become this common and somehow isn't a national story.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Summer Taylor. That was horrific. I wish I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
And I just, really sending love and solidarity to their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to point out that in the minds of people like Tucker Carlson and the right, it's not just Tucker Carlson, but it's the right in this country, and even Donald Trump, the protesters are the terrorists, not the people running them down.
Yep. That's
the kind of country that we live in. And when we have that level of asymmetry in our political conversations, there's two things. We have to double our efforts to convince as many people as we can, but we also have to just, cut the line here, draw the line in the sand with people like Tucker Carlson, because there's nothing left to talk about with you, because you would see someone get hit by a car and call the victim the terrorist and not the driver.
Exactly. While defending police departments that even in recent history have charged protesters who were nearly killed in these incidents with crimes, but not the drivers in some cases. Not in all cases. Many of the drivers are facing criminal charges, but in some cases, the police have sided with the drivers themselves. And this is not a new thing. I love Jesslyn Cook's work here. She found that in January 2016, a police sergeant in St. Paul, Minnesota wrote a Facebook comment urging people to run down protesters on MLK Day. Quote, "Keep traffic flowing and don't slow down for any of these idiots who try and block the street." This is Sergeant Jeff Rothacker. "Run them over." Days after Heather Heyer was murdered by a Nazi with his car, Conrad Lariviere, I believe it is, Massachusetts officer in Springfield, wrote on Facebook, "Ha ha ha ha, love this. Maybe people shouldn't block roads," after she was killed. And in Seattle this year, the King County Sheriff's Office announced that one officer, who happens to be Governor Jay Inslee's cousin, although I don't think that necessarily matters, had been placed on administrative leave after posting a picture of a vehicle hitting someone under the commonly shared phrase, quote, "all lives splatter," and another line about moving off the road. And so while we are trying to fight back against this wave of domestic terrorism, right-wingers online are sending memes. They have a funny phrase for killing protesters in the street. They think it's funny.
All lives splatter. I don't have it for these people anymore, right? Like, what type of depravity, what level, where do you have to be in your life to find joy in this? Like, you're not a good human being. Let's start there, right? All these people, they have Jesus in their bios, scriptures in their bio. You know, I'm not slamming faith. I'm a person of faith myself, but I know your faith is full of crap if you find joy and pleasure in people dying. And that's the level of where our hyperpartisanship has gotten. And this is not to draw a false equivalence between Democrats and Republicans, because I think Republicans have gotten to a place where they have lost their humanity altogether. Because if you find joy in people getting killed because they share a different political philosophy than you and they have goals that might inconvenience you a little bit, then you have lost all sense of humanity and your faith is worthless, completely worthless.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think about like those private Facebook groups that were found of police officers like joking about violence against protesters. And I also think about like so here we're talking mainly about regular racists who try to murder these people, and like leading to things like this, for instance, you might recall.
Right. So Eric Shalou, once again on the ground.
We played this on the show back, feels like a couple months ago. A truck that thankfully
what's going on?
Didn't kill hundreds of people,
Wow. Oh my God.
but did his best to. And that is terrorism. We should call that terrorism. But we should also acknowledge how many instances like this did we see.
Exactly. Yeah.
Every time I can't. The police are using the same tactic as the terrorists in some cases. It's madness.
Here's the other thing that America is so twisted. We place the value of buildings and the value of someone's schedule, right? The trucker had to get his delivery to the ports by whatever time. We put the value of that, and we put the value of being mildly inconvenienced over lives, right? They cry when a building burns. Like everyone freaks out when a building burns, but we become desensitized to people being killed. And this is just really a testament. It's not just about the individual conservatives in isolation. It's about this collective derangement in America that places the value of almost anything over the lives of individuals.
Yeah. God, it's in the fact that it's not a story. It is literally, for the past couple of years, the preferred tactic of ISIS to kill people internationally, being taken up by domestic terrorists, and no link is drawn by the media between those two things.
None, and that's clearly on purpose.
Yeah, think about you have domestic terrorism rising in America, and the media is effectively running PR for them by refusing to cover the story. Yeah. By giving them the cloak of people not getting what's going on to allow it to continue to spread.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are running short on time, so let's roll right into our last story, because I know a lot of people have been tweeting, wanting to know our perspective on this. So here we go. Recent Twitter feud we have to comment on. Friend of the show, Nina Turner versus Debra Messing, and it all started with Kanye West announcing he's going to be running for president. To which Debra Messing tweeted, absolutely, he's playing Jill Stein. He's trying to take young black voters from Biden. It's disgusting. So Nina responded to that, saying, you just can't stop dipping, can you, Debra Messing? Your connotation is racist. Black voters are not owned by anyone. Our vote should be earned every election cycle. We can think for ourselves and don't need your help. Sometimes it's best to stay out of family business. That could have been the end of it, but that was not the end of it, because Debra Messing responded multiple times saying that she expected that Nina would have been smarter and get what's going on, and then sort of implied that she was going to call Stacey Abrams to talk to Nina Turner for her. And then Nina, of course, responded to that. Ben, what did you think about this short feud?
Who was Debra Messing again? I think she was like an actress at one point in their life. And, I can't stand these people. The core of it is racist, right? It's racist because, one, you assume black people are just going to, oh, here's a black candidate. Oh, we're going to follow him because we don't care about any issues. We just care about race. So clearly there's a racist connotation there. Then, two, she is suggesting a level of uninformedness that to us really reads like, you think we're stupid, woman. Like, you really think that because Donald Trump isn't too far when we talk about Kanye West, by the way. You think that because Kanye West simply says he's going to do it, that black young people are going to fall? Listen, black young people barely can afford to go to Kanye West concerts, right? His biggest fan base are white people. Mm-hmm. That's where he made his billions of dollars from. And so the problem here is that she is carrying this I don't like this word, but microaggression type of racism that exists still in the Democratic Party that so often rears its ugly head, and in a fashion that is very insulting to the work of so many people. Last but not least, you're going to call Stacey Abrams on who? Like, first of all, Nina Turner is a grown woman who can do whatever she wants to do and say whatever she wants to say. There's nobody who's going to check her. So if you want her to respect you, you need to respect her womanhood, respect her independence, respect her thinking, and then just realize that you stepped in it. Sometimes you step in it and you need to take a step back. There's nothing wrong with taking a step back, but her arrogance really pushed it to a limit. And it's really a political arrogance, right? There's a level of political arrogance that wants to be able to command the black vote to do and believe what they tell us to do, and will not give us the autonomy that we clearly have.
Yeah. And like, first of all, if you're gonna push in this direction, don't do it against Nina Turner. What are you thinking? I mean, that's right up there with like trying to pick a fight with AOC. I don't understand why you do it, but I think that most people looking at this feud, and you should, I'm not gonna read more of the tweets. There's a ton, but everybody go look at it. And Nina Turner gives her a lot of advice, sort of writing from the perspective of what Debra Messing could be saying to learn from this. That's the thing. Debra Messing, I'm sure, thinks, I'm not a racist. I don't hate black people. I don't hate people who aren't white. But that does not mean that you can't be fundamentally wrong on race. No one is, like, no white person is right on race, and they're good, and they don't have to worry, and they can never make a mistake or anything like that. That's everybody, including me. You can always learn. You can always make mistakes. But you have to be willing to learn, hypothetically. Nina's even trying to help you in the thread. But you can't assume that you're immune. You can't be Bill Maher and think, no, I'm good. I don't need to learn anything. You don't tell me anything. That's not how it works fundamentally.
Listen, it is, and I want to double down on something. It is a level of political arrogance. Like for you to politically think that you have the right to comment on an entire class of people based on your preconceived notions. Like, the absurdity of it, right? That's some hubris right there. And it's incumbent upon us to take the necessary steps to not be even indirectly racist, accidentally racist, accidentally sexist, accidentally homophobic, whatever it is. It's incumbent on us who actually want to make this world a better place to go through the extra steps. So if you make the mistake, back up on it, but you don't go and try to call the manager. Like, what is Stacey Abrams? Like, who is Stacey Abrams that you're going to call her on Nina Turner? Nina Turner is one of the most dynamic political figures we have in this country. And what she's not going to do is pit two black women against each other. Debra, you definitely are out of pocket on this one.
Exactly. Like, if it's pointed out to you, just learn. Like, and the thing is, by the way, I'm not going to go a ton into detail. I've occasionally been in, like, Ben, I'm sure you do this. You get invited into like Twitter DM groups for activism or for messaging and stuff like that. I've been in groups with Debra Messing, and virtually everything I've ever seen her tweet is fine. She seems to have a good heart, good values, good person, all of that. Doesn't mean you can't be wrong. Doesn't mean you don't still have to learn. So this is not like, if Debra Messing is going to watch this, but let's say she did. This is not me like trying to like, haha, I'm going to get some hits by like dogging on you or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to do. You have to be willing to realize when you've made a mistake and when you've gone too far. And that should be abundantly clear at this point.
And it's so right, and it's so easy. If somebody emails me and messages me about something that I said that was sexist and it wasn't my intention, you know what? Back up. Let me back up. Let me consider it. How difficult is that? Because if you're not willing to do that, you are on the road towards conservatism as it is in America right now. The reason conservatism is so far gone is because they have an intention to never, ever change a thing that they do, what they believe. They never intend to apologize for anything. They don't care who they hurt along the way. They're just so stubborn in their ways and in their philosophies that it doesn't matter who they hurt. Whereas I think the intention on our side of the aisle, and and honestly, clearly, we know plenty of people who are the exception to this rule, right? We know plenty of people on the progressive liberal side of the equation that are just as crappy as any conservative that you will ever run into. But for those of us who are over here operating in good faith, it's nothing for us to take a step back and say, you know what? I didn't mean to say it like that. You know, I didn't think about it. And maybe you're right. And I'll change my mind on that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's too difficult.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier.
Literally.
Like everybody is ignorant of at least one and probably many groups' experiences and can learn. That's not acknowledging that is not a weakness. That is a strength. It's the only that's literally the only way to be strong is to be willing to admit what you don't know.
Right.
Anyway, Ben, it's been great having you here. Literally anytime you want to come, there's a spot. You can come, you can cut me off. It'll be great. That's what I want. No, the fans...
I've had a blast, man. Listen, thanks so much for having me. Shout out to my brother. I think he was in the chat room, Samus. He is a huge fan of your show. And awesome. He's a huge fan of TYT. We have been following TYT, I think, at least since like 2007. So I'm glad to be here and glad that your show is doing so well. 6,000 live viewers, man. That is dope. Wow. So I would be glad to come back anytime.
The only correction I will give you is that it hit 7,500. And the only reason I do that is that is our second highest ever simultaneous viewership. And it was for you, Ben. So thank you for that.
I love it. Absolutely.
Everyone, check out the Benjamin Dixon Show. Check out the Patreon only shows as well. Ben, love to talk to you again.
Hey, see you soon, man. Take care.
And everyone still at home, let's check in just a little bit more with the super chats before we head out for the day. Let's see. Franklin Sharpslicer had said, I think as a courtesy, Senate get Mary's copies from members of TYT. It's only fair and not a shtick. The Senate knows why Donnie is sick. Donnie may feel a bit hoppy knowing each senator is reading a copy. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. Thank you. Let's see. Frontier Brain Robbie says, not quite part of the news, but what is your advice for someone who wants to write a political work or pamphlet? I think like a modern day communist manifesto, common sense. Love the work, guys. Keep it up. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess I would need to know what specifically in terms of advice would distinguish it from something like writing, an op-ed, like an extended op-ed or something like that. I guess, be authentic, be honest, be well-researched. I mean, generally, probably the same sort of advice I would offer in that way. IZ says, is the Trump admin purposely trying to get all of us sick because there's such a huge push on opening businesses and schools with no real plan? That's basically what Ben and I had to conclude. Sean Reynolds says, the passion and transparency that you guys adhere is refreshing. We need more people like you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Nick the Unicorn just said, okay, I'm half black, so this isn't coming from a racist place, but I agree with Debra. I don't think she thinks Kanye will get all the black votes, but he's in the race to try to. I mean, thank you. You're totally free to have your own opinion. I don't know what Kanye is thinking. That's what I'll say. And so my issue with what Debra Messing said generally was the generalization. And then specifically, it wasn't so much the first thing. It was all of what came after. The defensiveness, the lack of willingness to listen and learn and all of that. But thank you. Luis says, can we please feed Donald Trump to Brock Lesnar? I think Brock eats healthier than Trump. I don't think he would consume Trump. Emma J says, glad you upload the whole hour video. Always listen while commuting or gaming. Also, are you interested in the Demon's Souls remake announced recently? So, Emma, here's the thing. I have played virtually every type of video game. One thing that I have played very little of is that type of video game. I played a little bit of Dark Souls. I played a little bit of the one that came after that. I don't think that it's for me. I'm sorry. Sage and Candle says, John took down a Karen this morning. Within an hour, she's being investigated at work. Sage and Candle, nice work. Nice way to start the day. Miranda says, eat the rich, dad bods rule, and Tucker can go to hell with that Tool Gates. Love you guys. Thank you. Yeah, the show got fiery today with Ben. I liked it. Izzy says, Tucker Carlson looks like a magic carp that's flailing out of water. Nice. Chris Robinson said, hashtag flailing magic carp. Is that a thing that existed already? Raleigh Jones had said Tucker is 6'1". Thank you to everyone who does that live research for us on the show. I really do appreciate that. Matthias says, John, FYI, New York Times reported it 2 days ago. Drivers are hitting protesters as memes of car attacks spread. Thank you. Yes. So to be fair, I saw that. That was actually part of our research came from that article. When I say that it's not being covered, I don't mean that there's literally nothing, or even that, you know, places like Washington Post, New York Times hasn't written an article about it. And you're right to acknowledge that they did. But considering the scale of it, it's not a thing. It hasn't taken over even one news cycle. If Chris Hayes has talked about it or something, I apologize, I didn't see it, but that's sort of the problem. But thank you again. Okay. Ty Johnson says, speaking from my own black experience, we're more likely to not vote at all than vote Kanye. She's not being overtly racist, but is problematic. Thank you. Let's see. There's been a lot of super chats today. I apologize if I can't go through all of them. Sama says, Ben is legit my brother. Promise when you read off my name, he will confirm. Love randomly watching TYT or Damage Report and unexpectedly seeing him. Oh, Samus is the... Ben mentioned Samus earlier. Thank you. I hadn't seen that one earlier, but thank you. And thank you for watching TYT for so long. If you've been watching since 2007, that's basically when I started watching. It was 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. I didn't start working here until 6 years after that in January of 2012. Okay, let's see. Over on Twitch, Francis the Rogue says, yesterday a cancer chemo survivor said to me, it's uglier than ugly. If anyone wants a front row seat to the death of millions of Americans, you can have mine. It has turned way too ugly for me. Wow. And Pink Lightbulb said, New York City News says it's getting better, but anecdotally it is different. I suppose it is better with less going to hospitals, but locally people are still getting sick and the ages are different. It does seem to be changing. By the way, Bart had said, one of our producers said, John, that Trump ad is coming from the same playbook that Nixon used in the 1968 campaign, but on steroids, targeting on people's fears and calming them by claiming that Nixon is the law and order candidate. Sadly, it's just history repeating itself. Fun fact, Roger Ailes was running Nixon's ad campaign. Thank you, Bart. I appreciate that. Okay. Jess Ortega sent us a tweet at hashtag TDR Live saying, OMG, I just got a top fan badge for TDR on Facebook. Next badge TYT. I wasn't familiar that that was a thing, but that is awesome. I'm going to have to look into that. And I don't take responsibility at all says, a great duo today. Love Benjamin Dixon's views and ideas. John Iadarola is solid, serious, and fun every single day. I don't miss the show. Thank you very much. And added Justice Dems to that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, a few more super chats. Cindy Hayward said, love the show. Watching in Nova Scotia, Canada. Stay safe. Thank you. And you as well. Although it seems like your government is taking it more seriously than ours. Larry says, media has called this terrorism, but in America, we let it go. It's a federal crime if a brown man, a Muslim, does it, but just fine when he's white. Or at least it's an isolated incident, at the very least. Nika says, thanks for honest talk. Thank you. Allison says, if we ate the rich, we'd still be starving. But it's a start, okay? That's your common sense pamphlet, is we need to consume the rich. I'm sure that exists. It's gotta, right? Zane says, AOC birthday is 10/13/1989. She'll be 35 before Inauguration Day, so apparently she can run. That's the hope that I have right now. Although my greater hope is that, you know, as much as I love AOC, and if you watch the show often, I don't need to, you already know that, fundamentally. But what I'm hoping is that by 2024, we're not just talking about AOC, and you know, there's a number of other good representatives that we talk about all the time, Omar and Ayanna Pressley and all of them, Rashid Tlaib and all that. It's that we have 20, 30, 50 more names that we don't know now. Like people who are out there doing good work that will be tapped and run and win. That's what I want in 2022 or whatever, or later this year. People watching the show right now that might run. You know, that's what I want. I want to have so many names again that I can't say them all in one breath. That's what I want. AJ, Tony, Team MM, thank you so much. Ron says, what do you think about the idea of the left allying with right-wing populists like Tucker Carlson and Sagar and Ajeti? Personally, I'm not a fan. In terms of allying with Tucker Carlson, if Tucker Carlson wants to sign on to Medicare for All and a Green New Deal, good. I still don't care about him. there's no operating in good faith someone who would know good faith smacked him across the face with a 2x4. No, there's no point in trying to ally with Tucker Carlson. I know what his objective is. It is maintaining the economic and political stranglehold that white supremacy has over this country. That's it. Anything else is propaganda to advance that agenda. That's it, at least for Tucker Carlson. Kirsty, thank you. Ty, thank you. Christopher Moore said, hello, gentlemen. Give us some good news, please. I mean, we had a little bit. Some of those SCOTUS decisions were okay. We had a bit. But anyway, with that, unfortunately, we do have to run. Thank you, everybody who's been so supportive of the show and watching it and hitting the like button. You know, Ben doesn't, I don't think he has a pet, but hold for 1 sec. This is Hilo. Hilo is my dog. He's my dog for a very long time. He's a little bit nervous right now because he doesn't understand what's happening. But last night, Hilo, who sleeps in bed with me, kept trying to push me off of the bed. And I would wake up multiple times throughout the night with only enough room for my legs to be stacked on top of each other and not much blanket. And that's his fault because he's a very selfish dog, aren't you? You know what you did. You know what you did. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow, Brett Ehrlich is going to be here. We're going to have Garbage Person of the Week. You can go to the community tab on YouTube to go vote for the community TDR Garbage Person of the Week. Can't wait to see what you all come up with. And with that, Dragon Squad, disassemble. Stay safe out there.